Hi! Following up on the previous video, today we're going to look at how Lambda Workflows work. So, to recap the context, we realized that in the summarizer workflow we created earlier, which summarizes a specific section of text, we had this part using the basic LLM chain and Ollama. So the question was whether there was actually a way to reuse this part, since in the new summarizer select workflow, we had exactly the same part, the same section of the workflow. That's exactly what Lambda Workflows are for. A Lambda workflow actually allows us to create workflows that will be reused later in other workflows. Naturally, a Lambda workflow can call another Lambda workflow, which can call another, and so on. So today, we're going to create a brand new Lambda workflow. You can already see that the names of Lambda workflows are prefixed with an F on the left. Since we're going to create a Lambda workflow that will reuse a portion of our workflow, so we don't have to start from scratch, what we'll do is go to Summarizer Select and duplicate it. Next, we'll modify the duplicate. I'll name it Summarize It, and set its type to Lambda. Then click Update. Now we have our Summarize It, which is a Lambda workflow. After opening the workflow, it doesn't automatically prompt us to add a trigger node like in other workflows. Instead, it asks us to add a Lambda Input, because since it knows this is supposed to be a Lambda workflow, it doesn't expect us to have a when started node. So first, we'll remove certain nodes and keep only the basic LLM chain and Ollama. Next, we'll add a Lambda Input. As the name suggests, the Lambda Input allows us to define the input parameters. If I double-click on it, I can specify that my Lambda workflow is a function that expects a first parameter. For example, text, the text to be summarized, which will be of type string, and have the default value nothing. We can add several other parameters this way, but for the purposes of this video, I'll limit myself to just one. When we run it, we'll see that we have a simple dummy JSON with text and the value nothing. Next, I go to my basic LLM chain. We can see that it has automatically detected that the expression here is no longer correct because the getSelectedText node does not exist, so we can remove it. And what we're going to do is tell it, take the value of text from our Lambda input. To do this, I'll just perform this drag and drop operation. Okay, now it's also asking us to add another node, which is the Lambda Output. I'll click there, then I'll drag and drop my Lambda Output here. This node allows us to define the output schema of the result that will be returned. For each attribute in the result object, we can define a name and the type of value it will contain. I'll double-click on it. I'll just specify that it will be an object with a summary attribute. Technically, this will just be the result of the previous node. Well, since we haven't run it yet, I'm going to run it now. Great. Now I'll come back here, and all I'm going to do is specify that the value of summary is simply the value of response. I'm saving, and now we have a Lambda workflow that's ready to use. I'm now going to the workflow page. I'll go back to Summarizer Select, I'll delete this part, and at this point, I'll try to use my Lambda workflow. So I click on More. Up until now, we've just been using the predefined nodes in the default section. This time, we'll go to the Custom section and then to my Lambda workflow. Here, we can directly access the various Lambda workflows that I've already created. What interests me here is Summarize It. You'll notice that the design of a Lambda workflow node is slightly different from normal nodes. Normal nodes are rectangular with slightly rounded corners. In contrast, Lambda workflow nodes are much more rounded and tend toward a circle. So I'll connect this here. Next, I'll connect this here. I'll open the settings and automatically it will tell us, okay, I'm waiting for a value for the text parameter. And that's normal. That's what we defined in the input node. I'll run it up to the previous node, then I'll simply drag this and drop it inside. Then, if I run this node to see the output, what will happen is that it will run the Summarize It workflow in the background with the provided value, and you'll automatically see the text summary. Then, I'll just go back here and delete this part so I can now use the result of my Lambda workflow. I save the file and run the workflow in its entirety. You can see that we get exactly the same result as in the previous video, but this time, the workflow is a little shorter. And if in the future, I decide I'd like an algorithm or process to summarize text that's much more advanced and efficient, all I'll have to do is make changes to my Lambda workflow, Summarize It. And automatically, all the other workflows using it will benefit from those changes. Of course, we could do the same thing in the Summarize workflow, but well, I think by now you've more or less grasped the concept. So, in summary, Lambda workflows are actually workflows in their own right, but they take input and output nodes and execute a certain number of actions with the input parameters. They return an object that will have the attributes defined in the output node. It can then be used just like all the other predefined nodes we've seen so far. In the next video, we'll see how to use our summarizer selected from the context menu.